For 45 years, a dried fruit company that started inside a nipa hut with 7 workers and no cement floor has been quietly filling snack aisles across America. And most people grabbing a bag of it off a Costco or Trader Joe's shelf have no idea where it actually came from. You probably think of Philippine exports, if you think of them at all, as call centers. Maybe a factory or two. That's the whole picture in most people's heads. But it's wrong. And it's wrong in a way that's sitting in your kitchen right now. An invisible ingredient in your ice cream, canned pineapple in your fruit cocktail, coconut water in your fridge, shredded coconut in your favorite candy bar. All of it every week without you ever clocking it. Now, number 1 on this list isn't a company you'd recognize or even a brand most people could name. It's one guy. And by the time you hear what he went through to get there, you'll understand why I saved him for last. Keep watching. This one gets personal. Number 7. The ingredient holding your ice cream, toothpaste, and lotion together might have grown in the ocean off a Philippine island most Americans have never heard of. Squeeze toothpaste onto a brush, scoop a bowl of ice cream, or rub in a lotion, and there's a good chance a gelatin-like extract called Carrageenan is doing invisible work in all 3. Thickening, stabilizing, keeping textures smooth instead of separating into a watery mess. It comes from a specific type of red seaweed. And for decades, the Philippines has been one of the world's biggest sources of it, farmed largely around Tawi-Tawi and the Zamboanga Peninsula, in the far south of the country, then processed in facilities in Cebu and Manila. The U.S. is consistently one of the biggest buyers, not because Americans are shopping for seaweed, because food, cosmetic, and pharmaceutical companies need a stabilizer that basically nobody outside the industry has ever heard of. More than 1 million Filipinos, largely in coastal communities across Mindanao, are connected to seaweed farming in one way or another, tying and planting lines of seaweed by hand in shallow water, harvesting on a tight schedule, and selling into a supply chain that eventually ends with their raw material dissolved, invisibly, into a supermarket product carrying somebody else's name. Okay, that one's basically invisible. You'll never spot it on a label. But the next one? You've probably eaten it 100 times, and it's been hiding under an American brand name so convincing that almost nobody ever thought to question it. Number 6. The canned pineapple in your fruit cocktail might come from the world's largest single pineapple operation. In 1926, an American canning company that would later become Del Monte planted its first pineapple crowns in Bukidnon, a province in northern Mindanao, chasing the region's fertile volcanic soil. 100 years later, that plantation is the largest fully integrated pineapple operation on Earth. We're talking 26,000 hectares of fields, roughly the size of a small city, feeding a cannery that can process 700,000 tons of fruit a year, with its own can factory and its own seaport attached. And most of what it processes doesn't stay in the Philippines. It comes straight to the United States, which takes the single largest share of everything the country cans, juices, or freezes. It's easy to assume a can of pineapple rings or fruit cocktail on an American shelf was grown and packed somewhere in Hawaii, the way pineapple branding has trained people to think for generations. In reality, the Hawaiian pineapple industry has shrunk dramatically since its mid-century peak, while operations like the one in Bukidnon quietly picked up an enormous share of the slack, supplying not just Del Monte's own label, but other companies' private label fruit products as well. Here's where it gets a little ridiculous, honestly. We're about to spend 3 entries in a row inside the exact same fruit. Same tree, 3 completely different aisles of your grocery store, and you already own products from at least one of them. Number 5, check the ingredient list on your shampoo bottle. There's a decent chance one of those words you skip right past started as a coconut grown in the Philippines. The Philippines is the world's 2nd largest coconut oil exporter, and the single biggest buyer, year after year, is the United States. Most of it doesn't even show up labeled coconut oil. It gets broken down into lauric acid and a handful of other derivatives that quietly end up in soap, shampoo, and packaged food under names nobody bothers to look up. And none of it runs through one famous brand. It's hundreds of small Filipino mills across Luzon and Mindanao, feeding supply chains for companies you already trust without knowing it. That's just the oil talking, though. Wait until you hear what's happening over in the candy aisle, because one company has quietly locked up almost half of it. and there's a real chance you've been eating their product since before you could read the wrapper. Number 4. The shredded coconut in your candy bar and baking aisle traces back to one company that's been doing this for over a century. If you've ever eaten a coconut-covered candy bar, a coconut macaroon, or reached for a bag of sweetened, shredded coconut to bake with, there's a strong chance it passed through Franklin Baker, a company that's been processing coconut in the Philippines since 1922. When an American flour miller went looking for a steady supply after his original desiccated coconut business outgrew what the Caribbean could provide. Franklin Baker now runs plants in San Pablo, Laguna, and Davao del Sur, and describes itself as the leading and preferred supplier of desiccated coconut to major American food manufacturers, accounting for close to half of all Philippine coconut exports to the United States. Its retail arm still sells under the name Baker's Coconut, a brand that's been sitting on baking aisle shelves for generations. What makes this one interesting is how invisible the company has stayed despite how long it's operated. 100 years is long enough for a business to become a fixture, and Franklin Baker has become exactly that. Not as a household name, but as the anonymous supplier standing behind other people's household names. 2 coconut products down, and this next one is the one that actually surprised me while researching this, because it's the newest of the 3, it's growing the fastest, and it just got locked into a deal worth tens of millions of dollars that never once made it onto a label. Number 3. The coconut water you grab out of the cooler might be produced under a 9-figure supply deal you've never heard of. Coconut water went from a niche health food to a grocery store staple over the last decade, and one of the companies quietly filling that demand is Century Pacific Food, a major Philippine food manufacturer that's increasingly become a coconut product supplier as well. In 2024, the company signed a multi-year deal to supply the popular American coconut water brand Vita Coco with 90 million liters of coconut product through 2029, a contract large enough that Century Pacific committed roughly $40 million in new production capacity and about 1,500 manufacturing jobs just to keep up with it. That's the kind of deal that never makes it onto a label, a commercial, or a store shelf. It just quietly determines what's actually inside the carton or the Tetra Pak you're drinking from. Coconut water is marketed as pure, simple, and close to nature. In practice, it runs through an industrial supply chain just as sophisticated as anything else on this list. It's just that the marketing works hard to make you forget that. 3 coconut products in a row, and that's still nowhere near the biggest thing on this list. Not even close. What's coming next isn't food at all. It's the single largest thing the Philippines sells America, worth more than every entry so far combined, and there's a decent chance it's sitting in your wallet right now. Number 2. Almost none of it carries a Filipino name, but electronics and machine parts are, by a wide margin, the single biggest thing the Philippines ships to the United States. Bigger than the coconut, pineapple, and seaweed categories combined. We're talking billions of dollars in smart cards, semiconductor devices, wiring sets, and power supply components. A credit card chip, a power adapter, the wiring set behind your dashboard. All of it manufactured, tested, and shipped out with zero consumer-facing brand attached. Components that vanish into somebody else's finished product long before it ever reaches a store shelf. It's the same pattern running through nearly everything on this list. The Philippines has become extraordinarily good at the part of manufacturing that happens right before a product becomes recognizable. The testing, the assembly, the precision work, and extraordinarily invisible in the part that happens after, when a logo gets slapped on the box and a brand takes the credit. Every single entry on this list so far has had one thing in common. No face, no name, nothing you could actually thank. Number 1 breaks that completely, and honestly, it's the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place. Don't click away yet. This is the one that actually has a person behind it. Number 1. That bag of dried mango in your pantry might be the most successful Philippine snack export you've never heard credited. And it all traces back to one Cebuano teenager's 4th attempt at a business. Justin Uy was born in Cebu in 1958, the 4th of 11 children in a family with no financial cushion to fall back on. He started working for his father's cigarette distribution business at 12. By 15, he was trying to run his own ventures. a fashion jewelry business, an egg-laying poultry operation, a mushroom farm. And every single one of them failed, mostly because he never had enough capital to make them work. In 1978, at 19 years old, he noticed something simple. Mangoes were rotting on the ground across Cebu during harvest season because farmers had nobody to sell them to. So he started drying them with 7 workers inside a nipa hut that didn't even have a cemented floor. That operation became Pro Food International. The early years were rough. 7 other companies had been drying mangoes in the Philippines since the 1950s, and breaking into the crowded domestic market proved nearly impossible. So Uy turned his attention overseas instead. First to Hong Kong, then through a Japanese trade organization's invitation in 1986, and a separate research trip to Rotterdam that same year, into markets across Asia and Europe. He also built relationships with major international food companies, doing contract packing work for names like Del Monte, Nestlé, and Coca-Cola, which forced ProFood to raise its production standards to meet global specifications years before most Philippine food exporters were thinking that way. Today, more than 45 years after that first batch dried in a dirt-floored hut, ProFood International controls roughly 80% of the Philippines' total dried mango exports, produces millions of pieces of dried mango a day, and ships to more than 50 countries. In the United States specifically, its products, sold under names like 7D and Philippine Brand, alongside store and private label versions, now sit on shelves at Costco, Trader Joe's, and other major retailers, next to the kind of shelf-stable, resealable fruit snacks that Americans grab without a second thought about where the fruit actually grew. Uy earned the nickname the Mango King for it, a title that undersells just how directly one failed jewelry seller turned poultry farmer turned mushroom grower ended up defining what dried mango tastes like for an entire generation of American snackers who've probably never set foot in the Philippines. He never really planned for any of it, according to people who've worked with him over the years. He just kept trying things until one of them stuck, and then he refused to stop improving it. That's not a typical origin story for an internationally recognized food brand. It's closer to the story of someone who ran out of other options and happened to pick the one thing his home province had in abundance. This isn't really a story about 7 products. It's a story about how deep a country can be inside your life while staying completely outside your awareness of it. A seaweed farmer in Tawi-Tawi keeping your ice cream from separating. A cannery worker in Bukidnon packing pineapple into a can with a 100-year-old American name on it, not a Filipino one. A coconut farmer whose harvest becomes shampoo, candy, and bottled water under 3 labels that all erase where it came from. And one guy from Cebu who failed 3 times before he was 20 and ended up teaching an entire country what dried mango is supposed to taste like. None of them get a byline. All of them are already in your kitchen. That's the pattern. The Philippines spent a century earning the kind of trust that makes American companies hand over their supply chains, their private labels, entire product categories, without ever needing to print "Product of the Philippines" anywhere you'd notice. Trust in execution, though, isn't the same as getting credit. And credit is usually what decides whether a country keeps climbing toward higher value work or stays the reliable, nameless supplier under someone else's logo forever. So here's the question worth sitting with. If a country can be this woven into your daily life without you ever clocking it, how many others are doing the exact same thing right now? Tell me in the comments. Next time you flip a package over, are you actually going to check where it was made?